New York Football Giants. Another crazy win with the most action-packed last 2 minutes of a game I've ever experienced, where I think the last 2 minutes of that game were about the same length as the rest of the game. A lot happened in that final 2 minutes. And so I'll recap that. Big time victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to give a little preview for upcoming contest against the Seattle Seahawks. That's actually not a bad nickname. Sawhawks? Hell yeah, dude. Seahawks in Seattle. It is the most important NFC game of the week, according to Pro Football Reference. So we'll preview that, and then I have to do it because it feels good to do it, to have this kind of talk at this point in the NFL season, just to look ahead, playoff possibilities, probabilities, seeding, upcoming schedule, what to look forward to, hopes, aspirations, expectations, all that great stuff. Let's talk the New York Football Giants. I wasn't able to watch the game live. Luckily, I was able to record it on Sling. Another insane, topsy-turvy, swerving, suspenseful, anxiety-ridden win. When was the last time that the Giants had this many injuries and still were able to persevere and overcome? And I remember the last pod, we talked a lot about, all right, here are the history of hot starts. Here are the seasons where we get off to a hot start, whether it be 5-1, 6-0, and here's how we finished. And really the only season of the 6 or 7 where they got the hot start was 2009, went 5-1 to kick it off. And then they had all kinds of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why they kind of collapsed down the stretch, because their defense was, they didn't have the kind of depth that, or the coaching, I'll say that would help them get into the playoffs. And that's a testament to this coaching staff. 2017, all the receivers literally dying on the field and in one game. And then everything that the spiral that we went into afterwards. And, there was a clip from a New York Post sports podcast. I think it was their Giants podcast, where they interviewed Jonathan Casillas, who was on that 2017 team, I believe. He was also on the 2016 team that did so well. He's like, listen, all the problems and issues that bubbled to the surface in 2017, they got to that place of eruption or whatever because there were some undercurrents of that the previous year, but no one wanted to talk about it or mention it because we were winning, But those same issues existed and were exposed in 2017, and that's why what eventually led to Ben McAdoo's firing. And his demise is that even he didn't cut it off at the head, I guess. He didn't nip it in the bud in 2016 because, hey, why address this? We're winning, so it must be what I'm doing must be working. Meanwhile, the number of injuries we've suffered, we have no right to be winning games, and we're still finding ways. And I think that's that again. That just goes back to the coaching staff. Ben Bredeson is hurt. Ben Bredeson had been playing much better football, had been taking a lot of steps forward, which was highlighted by Bobby Skinner at Talking Giants. And we felt okay, maybe we can just roll with this guy for the rest of the year and we should be good. And then he hurts his knee and he's out for the game. And Josh Azudu, who has been struggling in reserve, or even when he was splitting time with Bredeson, fills in and does well, especially in pass protection, which I know has been a major issue for him. Evan Neal goes out with an injury. And I remember seeing that as I'm trying to catch up, watching the recording and thinking, all right, how the hell does our offense operate without Evan Neal at right tackle? And this Tyree Phillips comes in, fills in and performs, I won't say just as well, but he does his job and is adequate. And it's not like we miss a beat or miss a step with the offense. I will say this, the broadcast team, Chris Myers and Mark Schlereth, stink. They stink. Yeah. True to their name, they stink. I cannot stand broadcast teams that put in such little effort like they do. Getting simple things wrong, snap after snap after snap. It's you guys didn't prep at all for this, did you? And I get it. It's a Giants at Jaguars game, and you might not take it seriously because you're the Giants are just getting lucky in the Jags or whatever. But Jesus Christ, dude, this was actually a really great game. And you guys made it seem like it was like a preseason exhibition contest. Come on. I mean, Giants fans have had a long history of not liking Mark Schlereth. What was he? He played for the Washington team that shall not be named, and then the Broncos maybe. But I will give this to Schlereth. He had like 2 sayings, maybe 3 that was like, all right, cool. Those like almost redeemed you in my eyes. Where like luck is the result of perspiration or something like that. Like, all right, I've never heard that before. It's kind of cool. Just little things like that. But the play by play, the play to play, like just constantly, this is why you can tell when there's not an A team on the production. Because it was like, there were so many injuries and we're getting fucking 0 updates throughout this all. It's like, is so-and-so playing? Where's so-and-so? Like, let's get some reports going. The refs were abominable, pretty awful. There was that BS call on Julian Love with the late hit out of bounds. I mean, like, the guy was a step out of bounds and he didn't like cold clock him. He was just trying to he was already in the process of jumping to tackle him when the guy stepped out. I think that's kind of like, or shit. We had meanwhile, then there was the roughing the passer on Dexter Lawrence, where it was like literally, I think if he doesn't grab Trevor Lawrence's jersey as he's falling down, I think it was just instinct of like, I don't want to fall maybe. And so he's like grabs him and then he pulls the jersey and then of course Trevor Lawrence gives the performance of a lifetime. And so they throw the flag on that, which is just garbage. But then they missed, like, I don't even know if this is a penalty. When you reach in and poke a guy's eye out of the socket, like, should that be a penalty? Like, isn't that not hands to the face? I mean, that happens with Daniel Bellinger, where he makes the catch and he's trying to get some extra yardage, and I forget who comes in from the Jaguars with his left hand, just like right in the opening where there's nothing there, no face mask, and it just gouged his eye. Like, you think, oh, I got poked in the eye, that hurts. Like, my contact came out. Like, that's what I thought the situation was. And then you see him getting carted away, and it's like there's blood just streaming out of his eye socket. You're like, oh my God. And that was a big loss. I don't think they put a timetable on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's out for the year. That's not just, some my finger broke, or I sprained my heel. It's like I kind of need both eyes for this to work. Although that'd be pretty sweet if he returned for the playoffs and he has like an eye patch. So now we got Chris Myrick and Tanner Hudson to step in and fill in, although they just signed Andre Miller back to the practice squad, who I guess fractured his arm at the end of training camp, but looked like he was going to make the team. So who knows? Maybe Andre Miller in a couple weeks starts to make some inroads into getting some snaps. That would be pretty cool. There was a roughing the passer on Daniel Jones that was actually legitimate, where the guy launched his dome into Danny Dimes' chin and jaw. It's like, yeah, that is a penalty, and that nullified the interception by Devin Lloyd. What I find interesting about that call is the interception, it's not directly impacted. So it's almost like, I would have thought that if you throw the pick and then there's a late hit roughing the passer, well, it was an interception regardless. Like, the Jags should get the ball, but then they get penalized the 15 yards the other way, but they still get the ball. So it was interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It's like, how those are related. I don't know. But I mean, you want to talk about a way to deter people from launching into someone's face. It's to take away the pick. That's for sure. Huge fumble recovery. The defense coming up huge. Getting the strip, poking the ball out from Etienne and recovering that saves us 7 points. There was this is where we might have gotten help from the referees, where it was in the second half. There was a favorable spot on third down. It looked like the Jags got it, and they ended up coming just short. And then that turns into 4th and 1, and we were able to get the stop on the Trevor Lawrence sneak. That was at the Giants 20, so that saves you another 3 points, possibly 7. So you're looking at 6 to 14 points, and that's the difference in the game, to be honest. I love how Daniel Jones played in this game. I thought he really stepped it up and performed well. He was showing some fire, showing some enthusiasm, which is great. We haven't seen any of that out of him. So to see that, he apologized for it. And people were like, don't apologize, dude. We've been waiting for you to show some emotion for years now. He got upset after that. We went for it on 4th and 2, which I don't hate the call. When you're that close, inside the 5, at the 5, 4th and 2, even inside the 10, I think you really have to have that level of confidence in your offense to punch it in and push it in, especially in this. I think especially in this game, maybe not, because the idea is if you're in a shootout or you expect to be in a shootout, like this is going to be a high scoring affair. We need to score touchdowns, not field goals. That call is a no brainer. But when in a game like this, where it's like our defense is rock solid, we don't give up a ton of touchdowns. Our red zone percentage is among the league's best. Defensively, maybe we should just kick the 3 points and like we'll live to see another day. Instead, we go for it. And to be honest, we should have converted. It should have been a touchdown, but Marcus Johnson dropped it. And that's what caused DJ to lose his shit. For whatever reason, this has been kind of the trend, right? It's like the offense is kind of slow to get started in the first half, especially the running game, where we don't really run the ball that much. And when we do, we don't have much success. And then in the second half, we kind of break out, especially in the fourth quarter. It just seems like we wear opposing defenses down and we're able to grind it out. And that's where the bulk of carries and yards for Saquon are coming in that fourth quarter. But leading up to that fourth quarter, I was just seeing a lot of what I would call 2020 and 2021 Saquon, where it's like, I'm going to dance and dance and dance, looking for a hole, when it's like 2018, 2019, and parts of 2022, he just sees just a sliver, just a little bit of the door ajar, and he decides to go for it and break through, and that's where he's picking up chunks. I don't know. It just seemed like he was running a little tentative for most of the game today. Lots of dancing and decisiveness, and then he gets that he rips off that vintage run, and it's like, okay, he's back. Here we go. Of course, a lot of people were upset with him for not staying in bounds. There were like 4 runs in a row where it's like, dude, just stay in bounds. Like, just go down. What's happening here? You did it last week last week. Like, you stopped inside the 5 against the Ravens. Like, plopped right down. You can just plop right down now. Instead, he just kept finding himself running out of bounds. And it's after every time he did that, he's like, God damn it, I did it. It's just like, what's going on here? You literally just did this the last play. Like, let's go. 12 penalties on the Jaguars is just absurd. I mean, there were so many flags on that last drive, on the last Jags drive. Although the last Giants drive to get that last field goal, I mean, how important was that? It's kind of swept under the rug, overlooked, but I can see, like, I have never been happier or prouder of a Giants offense than when I saw them run basically the same play 4, 5, 6 times in a row. And each time it was positive chunk plays, positive big gains that should have taken time off the clock of Saquon stays in bounds. But literally it was like extra lineman, motion right, and Saquon. And it was just, let's just repeat that. I think they ran the same thing 2 or 3 times in a row. Then they ran it to the other side once with Saquon. And then they boot off of it, play action naked boot with DJ for a big gain. I mean, I don't know. I hope Mike Kafka understands like how in love us fans are and how much we appreciate seeing this kind of offense. To know that you're not going to use injuries as an excuse. You have a game plan. You've told your players how to execute it. You know it works, and you keep calling it. How far we've come. From 3rd and 9 inside our 10, taking a fucking knee in the second or third quarter, to converting multiple long third downs, to running slight variants of the same play with great results. Like I hope he is able to sleep well at night, because the things he's doing on the offensive side of the ball with the team that we have in place currently, and Saquon, I get it, once in a generational talent. Daniel Jones has elevated from, liability to asset pretty much. I mean, he's the number 2 leading rusher on the team. To like a guy that you wanted to trade / cut in Darius Slayton, who's now coming up with huge touchdown grabs, big catches, and is able to at least give us some kind of threat down the field. It's just preposterous. Like, what? How did this happen? I can't be happier and prouder of the play calling. Going from, it's been years of really flat out pathetic play calling. Like, not just conservative would be an insult to this level of play calling. It's just like, we don't want to make any mistakes, so we're not even going to freaking try anything. I mean, maybe you saw flashes of offensive genius, maybe, or creativity under Shermer, maybe. But like McAdoo, it just completely disappeared once he became head coach. We just lost it when he became head coach. So maybe a little bit of Shermer, maybe McAdoo when he was just an OC. We saw a little bit of creativity and a little bit of what is possible from a scheming standpoint. And then before that, I don't know, it was mostly just Gilbride. Like Gilbride gonna Gilbride. He's called Kill Drive for a reason. But there's no reason to believe that's just that mentality, that psyche doesn't exist anymore with Mike Kafka. It's just like he's just gonna find a way. He's gonna dial up the right thing more times than not. There's only been a few instances, less than a handful, where I was like, what the fuck was that? Other than that, I couldn't be more pleased with the offensive play calling. The last time we had 2 100-yard rushers was in 2010. So DJ and Barkley both eclipsed 100, which, that's a winning formula. I don't know that you're going to lose a ton of games when that happens. And then, so I'm watching the recording, and I already kind of had it spoiled, and it's okay to spoil a win. And that's what happens. I had a friend text me, big win, and I hadn't watched it yet. And I was like, because I was very concerned leading into this week. I was just like, this is a trap game. This is a letdown. This is a setback. We're going to come back down to earth. It's just all the cards are lining up. All the dominoes are going to fall. And so when he said big win, I was like, whew. And he said, yeah, the ending was crazy. And I was like, all right, I'm pumped to watch. And I didn't think it would be that level of insanity craziness. It was like, I remember, so Saquon stays in bounds, quote unquote. The clock goes down to 25 seconds. Gano's lining up for the field goal. And I'm thinking to myself, and I remember I rolled the dice and I decided to check Twitter, knowing that some moments might be spoiled. And I kept briefly catching glimpses of like the ending. And I was like, oh, no, not going to watch it. I don't want to watch the ending. But I had it in my head as there's like 25 seconds left on the clock and Gano's coming out to try the field goal. I was like, how the hell did they allow the Jags to get that close to scoring? And then sure enough, it's like, oh, well, we reviewed the play. Barkley did step out of bounds. And now the clock goes to 1 minute and 7 seconds. Yikes. And then Gano's field goal gets tipped. Whoa, dude. If he misses that field goal or it gets blocked, that game goes into overtime, right? Pretty much, with the way that the refs were controlling the game towards the end of regulation. Well, the freaking flags, dude. We would have gone in overtime, and I don't know that we would have pulled that out. I don't know. But the kickoff after he makes the field goal that got tipped goes almost out of bounds, and you're like, if that goes out of bounds, they get the ball at the 40, and who knows what happens from there. We almost got our first sack. Dexter Lawrence put on some moves and came up with a big sack, and then it's like holding on Adoree Jackson, which was like ticky-tack in my opinion. We get our first interception of the game, and that's negated by a flag. Another ticky-tack bullshit call, and Dane Belton with hands to the face. How are you not going to call hands to the face on the Jags when literally Bellinger has to go into emergency surgery to get his eye repaired? And yet Dane Belton like caresses the wide receiver's face mask. And it's like, yep, that's a flag that negates the interception. And then as Schlereth put it, that was it's the longest 51 seconds of his life, and I'm sure everyone's life. 22 seconds, 4th and 15. And again, I'm saying to myself, how the hell is there this crazy play where we stop him short of the goal line? How the hell is this happening? And of course, it's this ridiculous conversion where Lawrence is off balance and kind of tosses it up, but it's an accurate throw. And I think it was to Christian Kirk. Maybe to one of the Joneses. And then they call another roughing the passer, dude. And luckily on that last throw, Fabian Moreau, dude, Xavier McKinney, and even Landon Collins getting in on the action to make the big stop and to turn Christian Kirk away from scoring. And he was freaking close, dude. I would say closer than a yard. It looked like the one angle looked like if he caught it and just had some kind of body control, like insane body control, where he could turn in midair and extend the ball, it's a touchdown. But he doesn't. We're able to wrap him up pretty quickly and get the stop. And I love how Big Blue VCR had it at the ready. The 1988 game against the Falcons in Atlanta, when last seconds of the game, Atlanta throws it towards the end zone and we get that big stop just short of the goal line. So it's like, after stuff like that and seeing other times it's happened and seeing how those seasons have ended, it's like, how do you not get high on your own supply, dude? How do you not feel so freaking good about this team? I don't know. I'm past the point of like, I'm jinxing them. I'm past it. I'm no longer knocking on wood. I feel good. Yeah, sure. There's still times where I was like, I feel a little too good right now. But from a stats perspective, we got outgained in total yards. Not a whole lot of passing yards, just 200, but we did put up 236 rushing yards against, I want to say, the third best rushing defense in the freaking league, dude. If that doesn't instill confidence in your team, I don't know what would. I mean, the third best rushing defense looked like that in the first half, whereas like Saquon has no holes, no openings. I mean, he wasn't really being too aggressive with just picking and going, but to finish with that many yards, and granted, a lot of that came from Daniel Jones scrambling, not designed runs, because like anytime we design a run for him, it backfires. So I would say if there's anything about the play calling that I'm not a huge fan of, it's the design runs with DJ so far, other than that naked boot off the play action that was pure gold. But a lot of these RPOs where he keeps it, it's like he's not getting many yards on it. And, you know, I had this in my notes and I forgot to mention it. I'd really like to see Daniel Jones learn how to freaking slide. Like, stop putting your body in peril. Because if you continue to run like you are, where you're not giving yourself up, you know, and you continue to take on these defenders that are just so big and strong and fast, you're going to get hurt again. And then our season goes down the friggin' tubes, dude. As much as I like Tyrod Taylor more than I did Glennon or Fromm or anything like that, I don't see us winning enough games with him as our quarterback and making the playoffs, or even making a run in the playoffs if we even do make the playoffs. And that's proven out over the last few seasons. Every time Jones gets hurt, our record suffers. His record has gotten better year after year after year. I know it doesn't feel like tremendous leaps and bounds, but his record is getting better year in and year out. And that's the point. I don't know if you're aware, but the whole point of this whole shebang is to win. So, I mean, when was the last time you looked at a Giants game summary at the team stats and you saw our third down efficiency at 50%? And this has been consistent throughout the season. I think there was only maybe one game where it was like not even close to average. Every game we've had above average. It feels like we've had above average third down efficiency, if not league wide, at least in game. Like, we have a better third down efficiency than our opponent each and every game. And that was the same here. I mean, the defense has been lights out on third down for most of the season. This game, not so much, 46% third down efficiency, but still, I'll get to what our official standing is with third down efficiency, and you're going to love it. You're going to love it. I like the way you look. I guarantee it. Time of possession, yet again, that's another one where we've won it every single time in every game just about that we win. We dominate time of possession. We have the edge in third down efficiency, and we win the penalties battle. 13 penalties for the Jaguars. It's kind of crazy to think that stadium holds like 65,000 people, and I think I saw a stat saying that like 59% of the capacity were Giants fans or something like that. So it wasn't exactly a home game for us, you know, an away home game, but I guess it might have contributed to them all their false starts at home, which is just inexcusable. So yeah, like I said, Barkley and Jones both run for more than 100 yards. Really good to see. Slayton with 6 targets, yes, I like that. We need to get him 5 or more targets a game. I really do, in order to really reap the full benefits of a big play Slayton. You know, he has that on that first drive. He's got that great touchdown catch, which almost dropped it, but he held on, which is great. You know, I still think, you know, there's some concern about his drop rate and his ability and his frequent inability to hold on to the ball. So that's still a concern. But to me, if you're getting him 5+ targets, one of those is going to result in something really big and really positive. And that's what I think that should be the mantra moving forward. Chris Myrick with 2 catches, 21 yards, and Barkley with 4 catches, 25 yards. I mean, you look at this game summary with the receiving stats for us, and you're like, how the fuck did we win this game? Marcus Johnson, 3 targets, no catches. I mean, that's brutal. Richie James, 2 targets, 1 catch, 2 yards. What? You know, I'd really like to see Matt Breida get more involved in the passing game, and I think that might be the case. For some reason, I don't see Wan'Dale Robinson's stats in this rundown, which I think is absurd because I think he had like 5 catches in the first quarter. Let me see if I can pull that up, baby. No. Yes. Yeah. 6 catches, 50 yards. I think 5 of those catches came in the first quarter or first half or something like that. So, I mean, that's really encouraging, you know, from the offensive standpoint, knowing that we've had some struggles with our receivers to have him step up and be a go-to target and make an impact is just I cringe to think about where we would be if he were not in the lineup, even though we did win without him. So I think it feels like Chris Myrick is gonna, obviously take on a larger, more responsibility and hopefully more of the targets moving forward now that Bellinger is kind of out for a while. That forced fumble by Xavier McKinney on Travis Etienne, punching that out as he could potentially go in for the touchdown or at least set them up for a touchdown, and Julian Love recovering it. I mean, that's just masterclass in defense. And I think that's why we are like one of the top scoring defenses in terms of points allowed is, taking advantage of mistakes, seeing opportunities and exploiting them. I mean, Adoree Jackson with 2 passes defended. He had a great game. Fabian Moreau had another great game. Adoree Jackson led the team in tackles. Fabian Moreau was right there behind him. Julian Love had a bunch of tackles. But you look at like the rundown of our defense, half those guys weren't on the roster opening day, I don't think. Like Jalen Smith was a pickup before the Cowboys game or after the Cowboys game. Landon Collins, we just signed, who he had a few snaps. I saw him. They basically had him as a spy on ETN with a running back out of the backfield. Nick Williams, I don't think he was on the roster or in training camp. Fabian Moreau was a late signing. I mean, it's just Nick Williams. Like, what? All these guys weren't like initially part of the plan, and now they're not only part of the plan, they're like stalwarts on this friggin' defense. Graham Gano had another great game, 3 for 3 in field goals and 2 for 2 on extra points. Like I said, if he misses any of those field goals, we're probably going to overtime, and I don't know, exactly that we'd be able to pull it out. Jimmy Gillen, whatever. Richie James, whatever. Lawrence throws for 300 yards. That trick play where Christian Kirk throws it back to Etienne, if he hits him, that could have been a game changer. Etienne rushes for 114 yards on 14 carries for an 8.1 yard average, which is just par for the course for this team. And I think if there's any reason to doubt the Giants in their push for a playoff berth and for a run, it's the rush defense, essentially. It hasn't really bit us too much yet. I mean, the fact that you can give up as many rushing yards as we did to the Ravens and still pull it out, kudos to us. But how many odds, statistics, probability, like I don't know that you can really expect that to be the case week in and week out. I mean, I guess in a lot of ways we've been fortunate in that respect, but it's still a little scary to think that, maybe teams should just wise up to that and just run the ball all the time. I don't know why you would even throw the ball. Christian Kirk, 7 catches on 10 targets, 96 yards. Friggin' easy E. Evan Ingram, 4 catches on 7 targets. There's that clip of him waving after getting the first down to the stands. And of course, Giants fans clipped that and put it out after the win and said, Evan Ingram wrote us off early in the fourth quarter. And he came out and said, no, I was waving. I clearly saw my fiance and my mother in the stands and I was waving to them. I was like, you clearly saw them. After a first down catch in the heat of the moment, you saw your fiance and your mother in the stands. By the way, that catch was not in the end zone. That was like, he was like a good 40, 50 yards away. I don't know, dude. And James Robinson, like I think he had 12 snaps, 1 target, no rushes. And I guess that was their way of preserving him so that they could trade him. And sure enough, they after Breece Hall goes down with a torn ACL and is out for the season, the Jets get their man and James Robinson. They trade for him. So be interesting. Like the Jets are making moves. And the trade deadline is November 1st. So I guess I should have put together a list of NFL trade deadline pitches and proposals. But, there's rumors about Jerry Jeudy and trading for him. I think that's a pretty cool move. I don't hate that. I think Denver's pretty much dead in the water, right? Russell Wilson's going to be battling that flat tear or whatever the whole season, and they don't really have a backup quarterback that can step in and win. So I could see how Jerry Jeudy would be out there. I just hate that this is where social media, I saw a stat that like 20 some odd % of young TikTok users go to TikTok for news. It's like, just know where you're getting your news from. Just make sure it's an accredited organization. And even those institutions are not exactly up to snuff when it comes to verification and validity. But like I saw someone post like, oh, here's Jerry Jeudy at Newark Airport. And like, of course, all the Giants fans like it. And then literally I scroll down once and it's like, here's Jerry Jeudy at the whatever airport, Miami airport. And it's the same picture. It's just like Jerry Jeudy at an airport. And all you have to do is be like, to stoke the fires, like, here's Jerry. Photo of Jerry Jeudy at blank airport. It's like, and I almost liked it. And I was like, this is just a random account. No blue check. Not that blue checks matter, I guess. But getting my hopes up. It would be a nice addition. But I don't know that the Giants, as much as we want them to bring in a player or two to fill in some holes and really refortify this roster, I don't think they have the cap. I just don't think they have, they can't do anything additional really, unless they can find someone to take Kenny Galladay's contract. And that's just not going to happen. Even just a portion of it. If someone can pick up half and we take up their half, I don't even think anyone would be willing to do that. It would have to be, we have to absorb like 90% of his contract. And at that point, it's like, what's that going to get you? I don't know. I think what's important to remember, as we think about players that could make an impact at the trade deadline is that we're going to hopefully get back a bunch of players. Like Andre Miller is a nice player, from what I've heard, to get back in the mix. Nick Gates, there's going to be a decision on him, or the Giants have to make a decision on him by tomorrow. Otherwise, he's gone for the season. I think Shane Lemieux is still somewhat of a consideration. I don't think he's lost for the season. So, it'd be nice to just get our normal starters back. That's almost like trading. That's almost like a big trade, landing a big trade. Like Azeez Ojulari, would be nice to get him back. Galladay, as much as he sucks. Tony, as much as he sucks. Like, it would be nice to get them back and healthy. So it's like, if they can actually get healthy for that last stretch, that would be huge. And we just have to kind of weather the storm over the next 2-3 weeks until Thanksgiving. Yeah, so that's the Jags game. Although I will note one final note about our offense against their defense. I mean, I've never seen a stat like this where 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8 passes defended by the Jaguars. Darius Williams had 3. Rashawn Jackson had 2. Or Jenkins had 2. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that level of passes defended, which leads me to think one of two things. One, receivers are not getting separation, which has been a major crux for I don't know how long. That's been the knock on them for a very long time, but not as much this year because I feel like Kafka has come up with some really grand designs to get them some separation. And the other one is Daniel Jones not having bad throws. The more good throws you have on target, that gives the defender more opportunities to defend it. I don't know, spin zone. But either way, you can see that we need help. Hey, thanks, Captain Obvious. We need help at the receiver position. So that was the Jaguars game. Let's do a preview of the Seattle Seahawks game in Seattle. As I mentioned in the intro, this is the most important NFC game of Week 8. Followed by the Eagles-Vikings game. Essentially, why do you ask that? Well, the Seahawks are 4-3. We are 6-1. NFC West is up for grabs. Believe it or not, Seattle Seahawks at 4-3 are winning or leading. They're first in the NFC West division. So they'd like to stay on top. We'd like to keep up with the Eagles and Cowboys, that's for sure. And if the Eagles lose the Vikings, I believe we're tied for first. We'd have the same record. I don't know about tiebreakers. I'd have to look into tiebreakers because we haven't gone head-to-head yet. Although I would say that if the next one beyond head-to-head is common opponents, they beat the Cowboys, we lost the Cowboys. So I guess they'd still technically be first. But still, any loss by the Eagles is a great loss for the New York Football Giants. This is an afternoon game. Vegas has the Seahawks favored by 2.5. Unbelievable. But also, Giants fans love it because we get to continue that underdog narrative and we get to bet on them and win. As soon as I saw the Jaguars were favored by 2.5 over the Giants, I took that and I won big. And I want to take this, but I'm less apt to do it. Like I said, I believe in the Giants, but there's a difference between playing the Jaguars in Jacksonville versus playing the Seahawks in Seattle. It's just a slight difference. Somehow Richie James are still our leading receiver, which is crazy. Like Sterling Shepard is 3rd in targets. That dude hasn't played in like 4 weeks. He's still 3rd in targets. And of course, Saquon leads the league in yards from scrimmage at 900, which is like a full 100 or more than the next top guy, which I believe is Nick Chubb from the Browns. For some reason, I was thinking about one of the Chiefs running backs, but that's because Kareem Hunt was in the mix to go to the Jets as part of a trade because he wants out because he's not getting his fair share in Kansas City. but that didn't happen. The big story for Seattle, I guess, or the two big stories on offense, is the unlikely rise of Geno Smith. I mean, isn't this what Ben McAdoo envisioned when he made Geno Smith the starter over Eli Manning in 2017? He's thrown for over 1,700 yards and 11 touchdowns, and we'll get into more of his advanced stats later on. But if he continues to play at that level, it's going to be significantly tough for us. Not that he's that much of a step up above Trevor Lawrence, because I think Trevor Lawrence put on a pretty decent showing against the Giants, but it just feels like I don't know. He's more of a veteran presence, has seen a lot more situations, and might be able to do some things that see some things that Trevor Lawrence can't. Tyler Lockett's obviously the number one wideout for the Seahawks, 468 yards, 2 touchdowns, although DK Metcalf is their number 2, and he went down with a patellar tendon injury against the Los Angeles Chargers in the Seahawks win. Pete Carroll's come out and say that there's no surgery, but that there's also no timetable for his return, so I have to think that he will be rolled out for the game, our game, and that's that can only benefit the Giants, that's for sure. You can put most of the focus on Lockett and then the tight ends. I think the tight ends are going to give us a headache. Last 5 matchups, we obviously won the last time we squared off in Seattle. That was the 17-12 win when Colt McCoy led our squad to a win thanks to Wayne Gallman and the rushing attack, but also our defense coming up with Patrick Graham's defense coming up big time with all kinds of different stunts and looks to help confuse Russell Wilson. And then, but before that, hasn't been great. I mean, we lead the all-time series 10-9, but I feel like I only the previous 4 games before that 2020 matchup, we lost all of them and they weren't even close. I think there was like maybe the 2011 game, which I was also traveling for work, but that score is deceptive. I know it's 11 points, but we were driving and then there was an interception that turned into a score late, so it looks worse than it was, but we had the opportunity to win. That was the game where Eli threw it deep and Victor Cruz had that crazy juggling catch for the long gain possible touchdown. So we're 6th in points allowed per game, which is phenomenal. And the Seahawks are 28th at almost 27 points allowed per game. But their offense is 5th in points scored per game, which is hard to wrap my head around. A Seahawks team that has a kind of vulnerable defense, but a very potent offense, like top echelon offense. And that's not to say that any of the Russell Wilson offenses weren't great, but they didn't I don't think there was a time where they're putting up like 30 points a game. I don't think. We're 8th in takeaway differential at +3, which is an incredible stat because our defense doesn't force a lot of turnovers. I mean, we just got our first interception like last week. We just don't pick the ball off, and we might force a fumble and recover a fumble here and there. But I think that's more of a testament to Daniel Jones in this offense. We'll get into the evolution of Daniel Jones in a little bit. But Seahawks are not that far behind, +2 in takeaway differential. We're 30th in passing yards per game. And Seattle's 16th. We're 2nd in rushing yards per game. And Seattle's 10th. So, I guess from the outside perspective, expectations, I'm imagining a lot of runs, a lot of rushes, a lot of runs, and not a whole lot of passing. But of course, knowing how the NFL world works, watch this be like a 52-49 shootout where both guys are throwing for 300 plus yards. Watch that happen. So I say that because defensively, both rush defenses stink. We're 28th and they're 29th. So I would expect there to be a lot of running in this game and a lot of big runs. So I guess the Seahawks should be 3-4. If you go by what the expectations are, they should be 3-4. We should be 4-3 and not 6-1, but the ball's bounced our way, thank God. They don't have a ton of really bad injuries coming into this game. I think Tyler Lockett was questionable last week with a hamstring. Sidney Jones questionable with the groin. They have an offensive lineman and a couple of DBs that are out or doubtful. No big names other than DK Metcalf with that patellar tendon injury. So would be nice if he just decided to rest up. Rest up, DK. You got a long season ahead of you. On our side of the ball, I don't think that I wouldn't be shocked or surprised if we never saw Galladay suit up and take the field for the Giants again. I really don't. I think they were just like, well, it's kind of like, why not just put him on the IR at this point? I don't know. But, Tony and Galladay were out. Ojulari was out. Zimenez was out. Flott was out. So I know Ojulari had a huge setback. So we're probably not going to get him back for another 4 weeks, maybe. And at this point, it's like, dude, just rest up as much as you can. Let's rest up and let's prepare you as best as we can for like that final stretch of games, because that's when we'll need you the most, really, if we're going to make the playoffs. The Seahawks offense, they're first in rushing yards per attempt. Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny were splitting the carries, and then Penny went down for the year. And now Walker has stepped up and stepped in, and it looks legit. Like he's a full-blown workhorse. Really good at breaking tackles. So he's going to be a problem for us. And then they're seventh in net passing yards per attempt. Geno Smith has almost a 74% completion percentage, but he does have 3 fumbles, so maybe there's an opportunity to jar the ball loose there. Not a ton of RPO. I think the quarter of his pass attempts come off the play action. I would imagine with the success that they're experiencing on the ground that they probably lean into that a little bit more. His pocket time is around 2.5 seconds. He only has a 22% pressure rate, only has a 3.3% drop rate. Only 8% of his throws have been bad. 80% have been on target. So yeah, he's playing some really great ball. And it's not like he's just dumping it off check downs and not throwing it down the field. He's averaging 8.1 intended air yards per attempt and almost 7 yards per completion. I had mentioned that the tight ends are going to be an issue for us. Will Dissly, Noah Fant, and Colby Parkinson, they all, as receivers, when thrown to, have a 104.2 quarterback rating or better, passer rating. So I would expect with DK being out that they would utilize them a lot more, a lot of 2 tight end, 3 tight end packages, a lot of play action. And, we'll get into it with our defense, but our defense, like Jalen Smith and Tate Crowder, not great in coverage. I know Jalen Smith is kind of an upgrade over what we had, but he still is not putting up the greatest numbers in terms of passer rating, completion percentage, and stuff like that. So I imagine they try to stretch the field with Lockett, maybe set up some wide receiver screens, some bubble screens with Lockett to get him in open territory, open field. And they'll probably look to isolate McKinney and Belton in coverage as well, as they have not had, they haven't put up phenomenal numbers in terms of passer rating, completion percentage. In terms of the defense, the Seahawks defense versus the Giants offense, they are, as we've said, below average in pass defense. Their corner, Tariq Woolen, leads the team with 4 picks. He's tied for the most passes defended. Their other corner, Kobe Bryant, RIPIP, leads the team with 4 forced fumbles. So that's something to keep an eye on. Whoever is lining up against him or catching the ball against him, he's going to look to poke the ball out. That makes me think that, Darius Slayton needs to be on high alert, because I feel like he's kind of is prone to that. And their tackle leaders are 2 linebackers, Jordan Brooks and Cody Barton. Their sack leaders are Darrell Taylor, linebacker, Uchenna Nwasu, linebacker, and Quentin Jefferson, D-end. Taylor, the linebacker, has 11 pressures. They all have 3 sacks apiece. Nwasu has 6 quarterback knockdowns and 10 QB hits, so he's the dude that's going to give us a lot of trouble when in pass pro. And so if you look at the Giants offense, 6.3 intended air yards per attempt for Danny Dimes and 4.8 yards per completion. So, that gives you an indication of where Seattle will be looking to put an end, to stop the Giants' momentum. Is like, let's get guys in the box. Let's maybe do a little man pressure, disrupt the release off the line, and let's muddle and muddy that 5-yard area where we can make contact and disrupt the rhythm and the flow, and then force them to try and take more time to throw deeper, because we know that can give them some trouble. 80% on target, 11% bad throws, 12 drops for DJ. Ugh, the drops, dude, the drops. 29.2% pressure rate. Pocket time is the same as Seattle, 2.5 seconds. And I think that's a huge, that is mostly due to DJ getting better at moving the pocket and not running into sacks. I mean, you looked at his first 2 or 3 games. I think he was among the league worst in terms of QB efficiency. And I don't know if it was QBR. Might have been QBR or QB rating, but he was among the league's worst, like bottom 3 the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then the last, 4 weeks? Yeah, last 3 or 4 weeks. He's been top 5. And that's because when he's getting pressure, he's able to keep his head up. As I said, that was the main knock on him, was that he feels the pressure, he gets nervous, and then he looks around him at the rush. Like, all right, I'm looking at this guy, I need to get away from this guy. As opposed to using his peripherals and sensing the pressure and stepping up into areas or spots where he has more room to roam and buying time with his legs and finding lanes. And I think that's what's contributing to that number and why we're seeing better output productivity out of him. We only run a couple RPO per game. We don't have, and going back to what I said before, we're not having much success with the RPO when Jones decides to keep it. So I don't think we're going to continue to run that often. I don't think we saw any Wildcat in this game, which is probably a nice breath of fresh air. It's like, all right, we caught lightning in a bottle. We caught some teams off guard and we were able to use it to great success. And then we ran into some issues against, Baltimore, right? And then we didn't even use it against the Jags. So again, it's nice to have, but it shouldn't be like an essential part of the game plan going into this. Although I don't know, if you roll out there with Breida and Saquon, I like when Breida and Saquon are on the field at the same time. I like those options. Saquon has almost averaged more yards after contact than he has before contact, but somehow only has 5 broken tackles. So that might seem low, but it's because he makes people miss. Like they don't even get a hand on him. And so that doesn't count as a broken tackle. I would like to, when viewing advanced stats, it would be nice to be like, made the other guy miss. Like, cause that doesn't get factored into broken tackles. If it's made dude miss tackles on running backs, Saquon's has to be number 1, dude. As I mentioned, Bellinger's a big loss. He led the team in receiving touchdowns. It was 2, but it's like he was our kind of our go-to red zone guy. And then he was tied for the team lead in receiving first downs. So again, a guy that Daniel Jones looks to on third down to convert. And he was tops among targets and in passer rating. So Daniel felt a lot of confidence in him, was willing to use him as an outlet. And there were some really great design plays for Bellinger as well. So who knows I don't know if Andre Miller gets elevated from the practice squad this week, but it's going to be pretty much the Chris Myrick show featuring Tanner Hudson, I guess, against the Seahawks. So interesting to see what Kafka has up his sleeve for that. My guess is that we'll have to lean on Wan'Dale Robinson a little bit more. And like I said, I think get Matt Breida incorporated into the game early and often, because I think that he is an underrated weapon. We haven't really used him too much, and that's because Saquon's the man. But why not get them both in the mix on the field at the same time? And I don't know that defenses can account for that. Darius Slayton, Richie James, and Marcus Johnson. Marcus Johnson needs a big bounce back game. We know that. But Darius Slayton, Richie James, and Marcus Johnson, those 3 guys can either get vertical or at least stretch the defense a little bit more and get those big chunk plays and avoid drops. So I would think that, okay, say Seattle stacks the box to stop Saquon and they want to go man up and play press. Can those receivers, Slayton, James, and Johnson, shake free and get upfield and get those big gains? Because if you're going to play aggressive, big risk, big reward, that could be an option there. And then I would say let's attack the linebackers in the pass. Brooks, Nwasu, and Barton. And this is where the tight ends come to play, and maybe even Robinson, because Robinson so far hasn't been a guy that you say, hey, just run a vert or run deep. His sweet spot appears to be in that 5 to 10 yard range, even on that what they called a jet sweep, but it was really a shovel pass to him. That's the level of play you're going to see for Wan'Dale Robinson. So it would be pretty sweet to get him, exploiting that linebacker unit. And then safety Quandre Diggs has allowed a 140.6 passer rating. So maybe they'll look to attack him. You look at the game by game results for the Seahawks, their defense got off to a pretty slow start in the first 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, from weeks 2 through 5, I mean, they were really bad. And they were probably the reason that the Seahawks lost 3 of the 4 contests and almost lost to the Lions. But, 189 rushing yards to the 49ers, 179 rushing yards to the Falcons, 145 rushing yards to the Lions, in addition to 375 passing yards from Jared frickin' Goff. 235 rushing yards allowed to the Saints, which, they had Taysom Hill, who gives you multiple avenues of attack. But since then, and 144 rushing yards to the Cardinals, which is not like that great, but is a vast improvement over 189, 179, 235. And then only 53 yards of rushing allowed to the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't know what kind of game plan the Chargers had in place, but it seems like a missed opportunity for them. And then their offense rushed for 214 yards. So I think that's going to be, they've won 2 straight. That's going to be their MO, their objective heading forward is like, let's just run the damn ball. And that's where success is. And that's where we're going to gouge defenses and make 37 points against the Chargers, 32 points against the Saints, 48 points against the Lions. It seems like their offense is hitting their stride. So this will be a huge test. Huge test. I think the over-under is 46.5, and I would take the under on that. I think it seems like it would be another 23-20 game, 2017 game. That kind of feels like how it's going. But honestly, watch this be an absolute air attack. Just like a pass happy 48-44 game. It's just like, what? Okay, yep. Everything's upside down. Got it. So, but huge test. And it must, and you don't want to say must win, but given what our upcoming schedule looks like, our last 7 games. Our last 7 games, that is going to be the gauntlet. That is like murderer's row. That's going to be, if we can make it through that, we can make it through anything. Am I right? We have to play the Commanders twice. And I know what you're saying. The Commanders suck. We always beat them. But you got to feel like with Wentz out and Tyler Heineke in, something about this dude just makes them win. And so maybe that he's going to turn that team around. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. They probably won't, but they're still going to be that's going to be tough. Dallas, at Dallas, Eagles twice, at Vikings, and then versus the Colts is their last 7 games. So that's why we need to get right in this. We took a great step in beating the Jags, but in addition to getting another win in the win column, this will be a conference win, which when it comes down to tiebreakers, which it feels like it's going to come down to tiebreakers towards the end of this season, be huge to get those conference wins. So it's like, I'd almost rather beat Seattle and the Lions and then somehow drop the Texans for whatever reason, because the Texans are AFC. And if we can stack those conference wins, then once we, if we do falter against any of the divisional opponents, we can still have a winning conference record, which you need heading into the tiebreakers. Eagles have the easiest remaining schedule. I've almost like come to the, I've almost come to grips with the idea that like Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia, from a professional sports standpoint, is on a goddamn high. The Phillies going to the freaking World Series. So it feels like the Eagles are going to continue carrying the torch, and they have the easiest remaining schedule. So I'd imagine that they probably lock up the 1 seed in that wild card bye. And then the Cowboys have the 2nd hardest remaining schedule in the division, 3rd hardest in the conference, and 5th hardest in the league. So I feel like Cowboys might slip here and there down the stretch, and we need to be right there to take advantage of it. Tough part is we have the 3rd hardest schedule in the division. We have the 4th hardest in the conference and the 6th in the league. So we're right there behind the Cowboys. And again, it goes back to what I was saying, like Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Vikings, like that's what we're up against. And then the Commanders have the hardest schedule in the division and the conference, and the 3rd toughest in the league, which leads me to believe that they're just going to be on the outside looking in. Not to say that they're not going to give us headaches. They will, for sure, but I don't see them making the playoffs. So in my head, I'm kind of preparing myself for worst case scenario. It's like, all right, we're 6-1. We're on top of the world. If the season ends today, we're the 5 seed. We'd have to travel to either Tampa Bay or Atlanta. I'd almost prefer to go to Tampa Bay at this point because they just look fucking awful. Like Tampa Bay is just, I don't understand how you lose to Carolina that badly, but they did without their starting quarterback, with PJ Walker quarterback, and with Chuba Hubbard as their starting running back because they traded Christian McCaffrey, and they pretty much won definitively against Tampa. The Bucs have like no rushing attack. Their defense is not exactly, their offense is giving them nothing. And so I think their defense is kind of gassed. So I'd almost rather face the Bucs in Tampa than I would the Falcons in Atlanta, because the Falcons have that, as Big Cat says, they're frisky fun. Atlanta also has the easiest remaining schedule in their division in the South and in the conference. So it leads me to believe that I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons win the freaking NFC South and the Bucs just don't make the playoffs. Whew, what an end to a career for Tom Brady. He would he can't go out like that. He would have to come back for another year. He's like, I'm already getting divorced. I might as well see this through. all the way to the end. So you probably have the Rams or the 49ers as a 7 seed, or and they would travel to Minnesota to face the Vikings, who would be the 2 seed. And then the Cowboys, if things were to end today, the Cowboys would be the 6th seed. They go to either Seattle or Los Angeles to face the Seahawks or the Rams. I think they win that for sure. Weirdly enough, I have more confidence in the Cowboys beating the Seahawks or Rams on the road than I have in the Vikings beating either the Niners or Rams at home. Yeah, wrap your head around that one time. Right now, though, we have a 90% chance of making the playoffs. I just want, to me, knowing that we have a bye week after the Seattle game, it's almost like you have to instill that mentality into your team. Like, hey, guys, if we give 100,000% in this game, just everything you can, lay it out on the line, you get a bye week. You can rest up, and then we can prepare for Houston. Like, let's just guns blazing, like no holds barred. Let's just all out attack, leave it out all there. And not to say that I've questioned the determination or the effort at all. I have not, but it's like, let's just go all out in this game, because if we can get that W and go in the bye at 7-1, you got to feel a lot better coming out of that bye versus, all right, we dropped one, then we go in this bye, and then it's like, who knows what we come out of the bye against Houston at home. Oof. But yeah, it's weird that I have more apprehension about this 4-game stretch that we're in right now, Jags, Seahawks, Texans, Lions, because I know how huge it is. I mean, this is a huge opportunity to really solidify our shot at the playoffs, because looking at that from Thanksgiving on, it's like, oh my God, It's just not to say that these games aren't tough or won't be tough that we're engaging in, but it just feels like we have a real shot here to make up some ground and to really give us enough insurance in the event that we slip down the stretch. That's the Giants. I will say this about Daniel Jones. I meant to say this before, but for anyone who's still, and listen, I called for Daniel Jones' head. I've said this repeatedly. When he threw the pick in the end zone against the Titans, I said, remove him. He's not going to get any better. He's still making stupid mistakes. He doesn't get it. And I saw Dable chew him out, and I'm like, good. Like, he deserves it. Like, you can't play like this anymore, dude. You're in year 4. And ever since then, he's gotten better and better and better. Now, I still had my druthers about him in week 2 and week 3. I was like, he's running into sacks. He's playing nervous. He's playing gun shy. What were the major knocks on Daniel Jones for the better part of his career? He turns the ball over too much, right? Fumbles the ball. He throws picks. He hasn't done that this year. He's not turning the ball over. The other knock on him was he can't win the close games. He's not clutch. He can't bring us from behind and win games. He now has 5 game-winning drives and 4 fourth quarter comebacks. Like, what? Those are the numbers we saw from Eli over the entire course of 2011. The entire season, Eli put up I think he had 5 and 6, and Daniel Jones is 1 or 2 games behind that, and we're not even halfway through the season. Now, granted, a lot of that has to do with the defense and their ability to hold on to leads and prevent what happened in 2015, where it was we couldn't get that final stop to secure the come from behind win. You can owe a lot of that to the Giants defense, but those were the knocks, right? He's not going to win you games, and he turns the ball over. Not clutch, turns the ball over. Well, he's not turning the ball over, and he's winning you games. He's doing what he needs to do in that pivotal drive that takes the lead. He's doing what he needs to do to get the lead. And then the defense is either keeping the lead or the offense is doing what they need to do to close out the game and kill the clock, secure the win. So to me, I think he's shown enough under this coaching regime for me to offer him an extension. I just don't see moving away from him is a risk, right? It's a gamble. It's not a sure thing. So you're just going to draft a college quarterback, never played an NFL snap, no idea how they're going to pan out, and it feels like a crapshoot more times than not, versus a guy who has now proven himself. And now, sure, it's a short sample. It's a short selection of games over his 4-game career, but he's now looks the part of a franchise quarterback that is not going to lose you games and he's going to win you games. So in my head, it's all right, I think I'm officially sold on Daniel Jones as the franchise quarterback. He's not the issue. If anything, he's the reason we're winning games. He's not just a game manager. I could understand if he's just a game manager. And granted, you look at the numbers and you're like, he's just a game manager. But to win games on throws, on runs, it's not like he has, I'm trying to think of another game manager where it was like the quarterback, all they had to do was just not mess up and just let whoever the playmaker was on offense do their thing. And granted, Saquon is that playmaker, but you still like, look at this freaking roster, dude. Look at the offense. Like, we have our number 5, 6, 7 receivers on the field because our top 4 receivers are hurt or done for the season. Like, defenses should be able to just hone in on Saquon and that's that, right? But yet through Kafka's play calling and trust in Daniel's ability, Daniel executes and it looks great. So dude, I'm sold. I mean, is he going to be a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen? I think that everyone keeps asking that, but it's like, I don't know that you necessarily really need that to win a Super Bowl anymore. I mean, it's, is he better than Jimmy Garoppolo? Sure. And like Jimmy Garoppolo got to the Super Bowl and lost. And a lot of people thought, well, okay, he'll never win the big one. But you have to start considering Daniel Jones as a top 10 quarterback, I would say. I don't see him as an average quarterback. I really do see him as a top 10 quarterback, a playoff quarterback, not a guy that's just, I don't think we're completely leaning that much on defense like people think we are. But whatever. Daniel Jones